I was 26 when I met Evan. He wasn't flashy or loud. He wasn't the kind of man who commanded a room. Instead, there was a quiet steadiness to him, an unwavering kindness that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't before. His calm was magnetic, comforting, almost disarming. He treated me like I mattered, like I was worth something more than I had ever believed myself to be. We married young. Neither of us had much, just a shared dream and a tiny apartment with peeling paint and mismatched furniture. But there, between chipped coffee mugs and laundry strung across chairs, we started weaving together a life. For a while it felt enough. We laughed over burnt dinners and whispered plans for the future beneath thrifted blankets. But slowly the shimmer dulled. Somewhere between the bills and schedules and predictable rhythms of daily life, I began to lose myself. I can't pinpoint exactly when it happened. There wasn't some dramatic moment of rupture. It was more like erosion, a slow, quiet crumbling of my spirit. I stopped feeling alive. The excitement I once brought into every room had dimmed. I was restless and empty, though I couldn't admit it then. Instead of turning toward Evan, I looked elsewhere, toward strangers who offered me fleeting moments of excitement, of validation. What started as a single reckless mistake spiraled into something far darker. For 4 years I led a double life, one of brief encounters, secret texts, and whispered lies. Not with one person but with many. Each interaction felt thrilling in the moment, electric even. I told myself it wasn't about love. I convinced myself these encounters didn't matter, that I was just chasing the feeling of being wanted again. I clung to every excuse. Evan was always working late. Our conversations had grown mechanical, our connection faded. But the truth was far simpler and far uglier. I was selfish. I had abused the trust he offered so freely, mistaking his loyalty for something I could exploit. When I finally confessed, it wasn't noble or brave. It wasn't some act of integrity. The affairs had long since ended, but the guilt was drowning me. I had to speak, if only to relieve myself of the weight. Evan didn't shout. He didn't accuse or beg for explanations. He just sat there, unmoving, staring ahead with a hollow gaze as though the very air had been siphoned from his lungs. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in the span of minutes. Then, with terrifying calm, he stood, packed a small bag, and walked out the door without a word. Months passed. I reached out again and again. Letters, emails, even calls to his family. I pleaded for the chance to explain, to apologize, to try and undo what I'd done. But he gave nothing back. Only silence. The quiet was brutal, far more painful than anger would have been. Eventually, a letter arrived, from his lawyer. He was filing for divorce, requesting no alimony, no shared possessions, just a clean break and a clause for no further contact. That was it. He vanished from my life as though I'd never existed. I spiraled for a while, drowning in the wreckage I had caused. Therapy became my refuge. Volunteering at a local shelter became a lifeline. I tried to rebuild, to find some purpose beyond my mistakes. And as the years passed, I convinced myself I had changed, that I had grown into someone worthy of forgiveness. But I carried him with me everywhere. No matter how much time passed, I still hoped, secretly, selfishly, that someday Evan might see me again and recognize the woman I was becoming. That he might soften. That maybe he'd offer forgiveness, or at least some acknowledgement that what we once had wasn't all a lie. Then one afternoon years later it happened. I saw him in a bookstore, browsing through old novels. His hair was flecked with gray now, his face sharper, more weathered, but there was a calm strength about him, something quieter and harder than before. Froze. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. But I couldn't stop myself. I walked up to him, offered a tentative smile, and softly said his name. He glanced up, his expression unreadable. Then, with a cool, detached tone, he said words that shattered me more than I thought possible. "Do I know you?" It wasn't anger. It wasn't bitterness. It was worse. It was dismissal, as if I were a stranger in his world. Desperate, I stumbled through an explanation, my voice trembling. I told him I'd never stopped loving him. That my mistakes, however unforgivable, hadn't erased the depth of my feelings for him. That what we had was real, at least to me. He listened, standing calmly, with eyes that seemed to see straight through me. Then he said, with a finality that left no room for doubt, "You didn't love me. You loved how I made you feel." Then he turned and walked away. That was the last time I saw him. His words haunt me. They ring in my head on quiet nights, echo through my thoughts when I see couples holding hands or hear laughter shared between partners. I wanted forgiveness. I wanted to be remembered, even as a cautionary tale. But Evan had erased me completely. I wasn't his ex-wife. I wasn't a regret. I wasn't anything. I was simply gone. And maybe that's what I deserve. People like to say time heals everything. But it doesn't, not always. Sometimes it only deepens the quiet. Sometimes it only sharpens the weight of guilt. I live a quiet life now. Small, simple, mostly alone. I do good where I can. I try to be better than I was. But some nights, when the world is quiet and there's no one to see, I dream of him. His hand in mine. His laughter in the kitchen. His voice calling me love, like it was the simplest truth in the world. I wonder if I ever really understood love back then. I thought I did. But if I had, I wouldn't have treated it like something disposable. I loved Evan as best I knew how in those days. But it wasn't enough, not for him. Not for the life we were supposed to have. Now I carry the ghost of that love everywhere I go. And every time I see a couple celebrating their 50th anniversary or hear someone speak about weathering life's storms together, I think of Evan, and the future I threw away. My betrayal lasted only a few years. But its consequences are forever. And in the deepest part of me I know, he wasn't wrong. I loved how he made me feel. But I never really loved him the way he deserved. And that is the truth I'll carry until the end.